It is so wonderful to see all these bright, shining faces at 8:30 in the morning after I know there were about 6 hospitality suites last night. So thank you all for being here. And thank you for accepting the challenge to be a part of this initiative. My name is Elias Diggins. For those of you who I have not met, I am the president of the American Jail Association. Today is going to be a great discussion. We have a wonderful group of panelists. At the end of our discussion, we want to open the floor up to answer questions that you may have. We also want to hear from some of the folks in the field that are taking on this work and want to hear about some of the great things that are going on across the country when it comes to gender equity. I'll tell you, this initiative for me and for my agency began back in 2014 when I was serving as the interim sheriff of Denver. I did that for 451 days and 10 hours. Not that I was counting or anything. But during that time, we had an unfortunate occurrence where a mother who was coming in to visit someone in our lobby wanted to nurse her child as she was waiting and being helped. One of our deputies, unfortunately, did not understand that it's a mother's right to nurse in public and said to her, and I quote, "Hey, you, take that in the bathroom." From that unfortunate occurrence, we wanted to take a deep dive into how that occurred. It wasn't that deputy's fault that he wasn't educated about a mother's right? It was really ours as an agency. And so we began to look at everything that the Denver Sheriff's Department did when it came to women. We did so looking through the lens of 3 different and separate tracks. How we interacted with the women that we worked with and treated the women that we worked with, including all of our policies and procedures, our practice and our culture. We had another track which included the women that are in our custody under the same guise, and then the women in the community. And what we discovered, thinking that we were this very progressive, forward-thinking agency in this city that has the same mindset, was we had a lot of work to do. And from that, our Gender Equity Committee made recommendations which changed the trajectory of the lives of women in our agency, the women that are in our custody, and how we interacted with women in the community. So fast forward to today, and we now know that across the country, from border to border and coast to coast, there are many agencies that can benefit from doing the same thing, from taking an introspective look at the way that gender equity and equality exists for all of us. You know, it's really about justice and fairness. And in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, justice delayed is justice denied. And it's time for us all to get to work, to get busy, to make things right. So at this time, I'd like to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we will get started.
My name is Shirley Morse-Meal, and I am currently the Executive Deputy Secretary for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, and so glad to be part of this panel and to recognize that the organization is taking this up as the initiative, the President's initiative. And personally, I know whenever I started in the system 32 years ago now as a clerk typist, that it was very challenging to move out of that role, very pigeonholed. And so got to the point where just wanted to make sure that everybody had same opportunity. And I was superintendent at SCI Muncie, and the same can apply for the female inmates that we had. So, you know, it's a very important issue, very relevant issue, and just glad to be part of the panel.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's nice. I've done a bunch of these panels, and I think percentage to total, this is the largest percentage of men I've seen in one of these panels. So thank you.
Let's give that a round of applause.
the Chief Probation Officer for Los Angeles County. I started my law enforcement career as a correctional officer with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I worked my way up, probably the prison you know. I was a captain of the guard at Folsom State Prison. I left there as the undersecretary, so I was over 175,000 prisoners in this California state prison system, 150,000 parolees, and 7,000 young people in state juvenile justice. I had the honor and the privilege of transitioning from there to be the assistant sheriff jail administrator for Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, overseeing the largest jail system in the United States during a profound transformative change. So I'm thrilled to be here. I also serve as the president-elect, Shirley is the president of the Association of Women Executives in Corrections. So I'm thrilled to be here this morning. Thank you for inviting me.
I don't know how I follow that. Pretty amazing ladies up here, and I appreciate their influence over the years. I've had the privilege of hearing Terry speak on gender issues in several different venues, and so it's exciting for me to be able to sit up here with her. And I've met Shirley, and I'm so impressed with these ladies. I'm Marcia Travis. I'm from Nashville, Davidson County Sheriff's Office. Currently, I'm the Director of Standards and Accountability for that office, but I started off a little different track. I started off at telephones at the Sheriff's Office. From there, moved into the programming track and case management and developing directory programs for the inmate offenders. From there, my sheriff was a little innovative and a little creative, and I had done some work outside of our agency, and he moved me to being chief of security in a brand new opening facility, and had that confidence in me to be able to step out of the norm. And from there, administrator, and I did that role for probably 10 to 15 years before stepping into my current role. So, I'm excited to come from an agency that takes chances on people and makes opportunities and is willing to advance from within and grow the talent internally. I'm also the president-elect for the American Jail Association and the chair of the Gender Equity Committee as we look forward to the gender equity and gender responsive strategies to suggest, put forward, and try to promote.
Thanks, Marcia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erica Frierson, and I'm from San Diego. I've been with the San Diego Sheriff's Department for 23 years, and I recently was promoted to commander, so I will be the first detentions female commander for our agency. I'm very excited to be here with these wonderful women, amazing role models. I've sat on many venues and listened to Ms. McDonald speak. She's inspiring, and again, it's just exciting to be here. For me, in our department, we have 7 detention facilities. Our average daily population is about 5,700 inmates, and most recently, we opened our new female detention facility, and I was honored to be the captain at that facility and was able to transform our facility into a gender responsive and trauma-informed facility. I think our department has been very innovative with doing things differently. We are still looking at improving everything that we're doing within our female facility, but we will talk about that in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Eric and I actually met when I went and toured that facility, Las Colinas Detention Facility in San Diego. For those of you who have the opportunity to visit it, it is one of the best run jails, maybe the best run jail in the entire United States. Absolutely phenomenal, from the culture, to the physical plant, to the gender responsive and trauma-informed practices that they have. Absolutely phenomenal. Let's jump right in. I have a question for you all. Women who are correctional officers and deputies tend to be the numerical minority and not in as many positions of power as men in the same agency. This can lead women to feel that they have fewer promotional opportunities or that current promotional procedures are unfair. What can be done to change that mindset? Whoever wants to jump in, just jump right in.
Great question, and certainly a fair question. And I believe that one of the things that really needs to happen in order to show individuals that opportunities exist is to demonstrate that. Demonstrate that through the training that's provided, demonstrate it through who goes to the training. You know, sometimes we see the same people over and over again that go to all of the training and have the training opportunities. So I think it's important that, you know, the more women that are in positions of higher authority, the more women know that they can do it, the more men know that they can do it. So I think it's important that it's not just a policy that is written, but it's a policy that's put into action and demonstrated by the training and role modeling that's done and the opportunities that are presented equally. And I think that it has to be a conscious decision to make sure that it's a diverse group that is being provided the opportunities. It's not something that's just going to happen. It's something that needs to be at the forefront. It needs to be a dedicated initiative and have somebody who's watching over to make sure the initiative is being implemented as you want it to be. So I think that there are definitely opportunities to let women know that there's opportunity.
Thanks, Shirley.
I think Shirley's right. It has to be purposeful. So if you're sitting in an initiative, you're sitting in a meeting, and you look to the left and you look to the right, and everybody looks like you need to rethink. And so I can give you an example. I went to a gang seminar with California Department of Corrections. There's about 300 people who were gang investigators with CDCR at the time, California Corrections. And if they looked to the left and they looked to the right, between the whole group of these 300 people, they didn't have 7 hairs on their heads, right? They were primarily bald, primarily Caucasian, and that's how, and they were all men. There were 2 women there, and the women were taking notes and running things. So I think a purposeful understanding about who's doing what. Are we diverse? Are we looking at different initiatives? The other question is, what do you have people doing for you? If you're, probably most of the people in here are supervisors and managers. Are the the ones arranging the potlucks, and the men's are the ones doing the tactical stuff? And that's just the kind of thing you have to look at. You know, are you giving diverse opportunity? And if you're a woman, you have to be willing to say, you know what, boss, I don't want to plan the potluck. I really would like to go be part of this new cell extraction protocol that we're putting together. And so making sure that it's a purposeful action, that you're really questioning your own decisions about who you're selecting to do the jobs, making sure that there's a broad understanding about when tests are coming available and how to get on lists, because almost everybody in here is a civil servant, and really challenging folks to come out of their own. And I don't care, I'm going to be honest with you, you'll hear me see this many times today. It doesn't matter to me if the equity issue is a man issue, a woman issue, an issue of color. It's everybody feel like they have a seat at the table. And when they get to the table, is there somebody sitting at the table that looks a little bit like them so that they feel safe? And if somebody doesn't look like them, to the people that don't look like them, make them feel included, and what they say matters.
Very good, thank you, Terry.
Terry's word was purposeful. The word that I had written down this morning prepping for this was intentional. My agency is the most diverse agency in metro government. There was a study several years to support that. When I started looking at our numbers in preparation to chair the committee, you know, I pulled the numbers, and Terry's right. There's a lot of people in our upper management that look like me. Our diversity is one of the cornerstones of our mission statement. We strive to meet that every day. And then, as good as we are, and as good as we think we are, then I started looking at other factors. And what I found is where we're really good in top level management, I look down a level and we're not as good as there. Okay, and recognizing that, so, you know, bringing that up and paying attention to it and making it intentional, that we will make an effort to level that playing field as well. Because who's going to be in charge when those top level managers, who are very diverse, walk out the door? It's those people that are in those mid positions now. You know, so it's taking the time to develop those resources and intentionally developing those resources, going out and recruiting. And, you know, it's not about being a token. I don't care about being the token. Okay? I don't want to be the token female at the table. It's about having a choice of qualified individuals. And how do you make those individuals qualified? As you seek them out, send them to training. You know, sometimes you believe in them when they don't believe in themselves. You know, you put them in those opportunities, whether it be training, whether it be projects, you know, until they get that confidence in themselves. That's what people did for me, and then now it's my turn to turn around and do that for someone else.
Outstanding.
Well, I have to echo everything these wonderful women just said. I think, you know, like she just mentioned, diversity is one of the core values on my department, and we do have a very diverse department, but at times through the ranks, the diversity is not as strong as it is down at the lower level. And I think being able to properly recruit for an agency as large as we are, diversity is important, and making sure that we have that throughout the ranks, and always helping our folks understand that there is room at the table for them, and making sure that everyone feels a part of the department and not just being the token person like she mentioned. Because I also don't want to be the token person at the table or the one planning the holiday parties. And so showing our troops that we are there to provide them the resources and the tools to be just as competitive as our partners is what's important to me.
I recall a song by James Brown where he said, "I don't want nobody giving me nothing. Open the door and I get it myself." And I think that's exactly what it is, right? We need to have the door open for equity and inclusion. And I have experienced that as an African American man during my career as well. Here's a question that I have for you all. With everything that's going on in jails across the country, from mental health crisis to opioid to staffing shortages, why do you think sheriffs, jail administrators, and directors of correction should care about gender equality? Why should that be a priority as well?
I actually sat down and talked to my undersheriff before I came out here and asked him that question. And I wanted to be able to represent what our agency thought about gender equality, and what his response was that we want to be able to provide to our community and be able to understand our community by ensuring that our department was diverse, and having women on our department and having women leaders within our agency allows us to better connect with our community. San Diego is a very diverse county, and ensuring that our entire agency is a reflection of our community is what's important to our leaders.
Thank you.
Erica took all my answers.
You don't get to say that this morning, Marcia.
The look left and look right, I took that away from a presentation that you had given before. You know, and that's one thing that I look at the American Jail Association, my agency, and we don't believe in diversity as just a race issue or just a gender issue, but it's also people who think differently. Any kind of difference. You know, we have a thought in our agency that if somebody wants to volunteer, if somebody wants to give of their time, of their talents, we don't say no. Because we want to make sure that the community at large knows that we're there for them. And there's no way to show that if they don't feel welcome, if they don't feel like that they have a connection with somebody in the agency. And sometimes that's what it takes is, you know, the person that looks like them or the person that thinks like them. You know, there's no way that we could do all the great things that we do at our agency if everybody thought the same way. You know, we have some pretty heated discussions sometimes. We don't always agree. You know, I've sat in meetings with people who are sunshine and rainbows and butterflies and let's save everybody in the world, and you're trying to balance that with correctional practice, and you know, and if everybody thought lock them down, cell searches and all that, we'd never rehabilitate anyone. And that's our goal. Our goal is to send offenders back out in the community better than they were when they came in.
So you're talking about gender equity, not just for officers, but for inmates as well.
Gender responsive issues, you know, there is not one program that's going to reach everyone. There's no cookie cutter approach to anything in corrections, despite, you know, our need to write standard procedures, standard policy. You know, everything that we do has to be individuals. I want to be treated like an individual. I want my needs met. I don't want a cookie cutter approach to everyone else. So why wouldn't the staff feel the same way? Why wouldn't they need flexibility? Why wouldn't they need consideration based on their needs, not mine? I can't speak for every female. I can't speak for every staff member, but I need to take their needs into consideration. Well, dealing with inmates is not inmate behavior versus staff behavior. It's human behavior. So why don't the inmates need things that are tailored towards their needs? There's no one program that's going to solve every inmate's needs. You know, some will need housing, some will need assistance with children, some will need medication upon release, some will need to be handed off to a treatment center. Everything is so person-oriented, and unless you take that approach, you're not going to make a difference in the world.
Thank you. Terry, could you talk about efforts to change gender equity when it comes to women that are in custody as well, and the work that you know that's being done in that regard across the country? It's an issue that's beginning to have more eyes on. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, and there's some experts in this room. Karen Dalton, I saw Andy Moss roaming around. The understanding that women are different, I don't think anybody's shocked by that, right? I mean, I don't think anybody in this room is going to say an aha moment that we need to treat female inmates differently than we do male inmates, because women have different needs. And so, for example, I'll use California Corrections. They would do a women's program for cosmetology. And that was, everybody thought that was great. We're doing this women's program for cosmetology. You go inside the program, the women were all dolled up, hair everywhere, eyebrows all done. But when the women left, they couldn't get a job, right? And so understanding that women need to be able to have living wage jobs upon release, understanding that women come to a pathway in detention that is largely different than men. They bring an enormous amount of trauma to the table. If you look at young women in the juvenile justice system, the vast majority of them have been sexually molested at very young ages, start young for long duration. And so understanding that when women come into detention, right, they bring that trauma, that pain, that distrust, that hypersexualization, and that going out, you're not going to be able to give them a stenographer class and they're going to be able to go get a living wage job. You know, women, you know this, I'm telling you what you already know, they don't get visitors, right? They just don't. They are disconnected from the community when they come into detention, and understanding how to reconnect. But if you see all of the lens through the male management, because that's 90% of your population in almost every jurisdiction, I suspect. So you focus so much energy on men, when really if you take a minute to say, wait a minute, are female inmates different? What pathway brings them here? What services do they need while they're here? What specialized training do the staff need? I will tell you, the vast majority of male officers don't like to work with female prisoners. Is that true? Right? Because
Anybody disagree with that?
is that true? I don't want to work with women, right? They're needy, right? They're needy. Well, they have needs. Female inmates have needs. And the question is, how do you transform your system to understand those needs? How do you, and that's a public safety initiative, right? A thing that understands the needs of inmates while they're in our stead, right? Understanding their needs, addressing those needs. When they get out, you get fewer victims. And if you really could see the connection point between female inmates and homelessness and DCFS and children that teen pregnancy, there's a lot of connection points that if you really could do a gender responsive approach, truly do a gender responsive approach, the women's outcomes are amazing with that kind of strategy. And there's plenty of research around this now. I'm not cutting edge conversation here. And I see National Institution of Justice is here. You know, knock on somebody's door, introduce yourself. Find out what's going on nationally and join the party.
Thank you, Terry. It's extremely important because those same statistics also show that 80% of the women in custody are mothers as well. So we're affecting families and generations of folks. Their children have a higher likelihood of becoming offenders as well. So if we help the mother, we're helping the family. We help that family, we're helping our community. We're making our communities better and safer as well by helping the women that are in custody. Shirley, did you want to jump in on that? Okay. Let me pivot to a different question about stress and the women that stress, or the stress that women who work in this field have. Studies have also shown that they have higher levels of stress. Can you talk about some of the things that you've done to help your staff manage their stress in working in this field?
First is to recognize that they have stress, and I think that's something that everybody needs to be cognizant of, and that it's okay to have it. I think one of the things is that we're particularly focusing on is just wellness programs and giving people the opportunity to say that it's okay to go to a cooling off room. It's okay to make sure that staff feel like they have the support to take the time that they need to make sure that their mental health is well, that their physical health is well. I think just recognizing that it's stress and providing support through employee associations and through the administration is very significant to make sure that everybody gets what they need, that it's not something that we can deny. It's a stressful environment that we work in. It's oftentimes a dangerous environment that we work in. So I think that just providing the resources and the support and making it known, you know, it's not enough just to have the information available. Those individuals who need to know it need to know about it. And so to make sure that the communication is really good, to share the resources that are out there, to provide support as administrators, as executive staff, and also to recognize that people are human. It doesn't hurt to go out and talk with your staff, get to know your staff, and be able to have that conversation so they know that you're relating to them, and you can also, they can also relate to you. So I think recognition is important, but also to have employees or employer-sponsor-led activities to address the stress that we all have.
Thank you, Shirley. Marshall, I'm going to start with you on this one and then ask Erica and Terry, Shirley to jump in. Terry, you weren't here yesterday for the meeting. You had the Gender Equity Committee meeting yesterday, the kickoff of that with a packed house. There was almost standing room only in that room. And I just wanted to ask about some of the takeaways from what you heard during that discussion, things that you thought were important for everyone in the association to hear as you all left that meeting.
It was a phenomenal meeting, and I mean, we had representation from so many different resources. We had a lot of points of view, a lot of different issues expressed, and you know, several of the takeaways is, you know, this issue has kind of come and gone. Other issues pop up, and this one would step back in priority. So taking the work that's already been done, re-energizing that work, pushing that forward, what kind of resources can we offer? What kind of mentorships can we offer? getting a lay of the land, what's improved over the years. You know, we've talked specifically about how to implement and have, you know, I think as we've come through corrections over the years, we realized, you know, there have to be tangible things you can point to as this is what we accomplished. We can't just go around, talk about it, have a lot of meetings, and, oh, we raised awareness of gender equity, and that was our goal. Those days are gone. You know, we need to make this an effort to where you can reach out to the American Jail Association, you can reach out to your agencies, and whether it be gender equity committees in your own agency. I specifically asked someone from Elias's agency who's had the experience in creating that committee and driving that they brought up several issues that they encountered that they didn't expect to encounter. And so what kind of resources can they provide as we start to push that out to other agencies? So definitely contact us for those things as we go along, and we'll push those out through the website and through the newsletters that we do. But, you know, it was interesting that Sonia, who attended the meeting yesterday, said as they got into some of the issues, they realized, hey, we're talking about gender equity, you know, so that's not just female empowerment, female hear me roar kind of things. It's making sure, you know, even the guys are treated equally when it comes to issues. And, you know, and transgender issues pop up as well as when you're dealing with staff and making sure that you're meeting their needs as well. You know, I look forward to probably some webinars and workshops coming out of that for people to share their experiences. You know, 'cause I really think when people come to specifically AJ, and this is what it's done for me, is I walked into a workshop to hear from people just like me, you know, people who have my same issues, and I constantly go away with ideas of what they've done, and that's what we hope to do, is take the best practices from everybody across the country. You know, I'm in Tennessee, we've got California representation, Pennsylvania. Where else can we reach and pull those resources into one to allow the membership to go in there and replicate something that's already worked somewhere else?
Thank you. Aaron, or Shirley, you want to jump in on that?
There were really two issues that I came away with, and one was from someone else that was there who had shared that whatever it is that staff receive or that staff experience, it's even worse for the inmate population that's there. And I didn't really think about that previously, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. So if there's sexual harassment, or there's inequality, or there's lack of gender equity or gender equality, then that goes to the population as well. So when we talk about gender responsiveness, we need to be looking at staff, but also looking at the population that we have as well, to make sure that the culture, that the environment is one that supports both. And in turn, that's certainly going to have an impact on them and have an impact on their releases and what they can accomplish, and just changing the entire environment. So I think it's really important that it be looked at with a wide lens and not a narrow lens, recognizing that needs are different. I think the other thing, well, actually two more things that I took away from it, and that's really that people just want to make sure that it's their ability and not their anatomy that gets them the job. And that's very important. And when you look at the incident command system and how that operates, ideally, you lose all rank structure and you look at who's best for the position to get the job done. And I think that's really what we want. We want to make sure that we have the opportunities the same, that we get what we need identified and it's provided, and then we're able to demonstrate that we can get the job done, that we're leaders, that we're valuable, that we bring information to the table, that we bring expertise to the table, we bring leadership to the table, and that's very critical. I think the last thing that I recognize, as Terry had said before, she's president-elect for the Association of Women Executives in Corrections. I'm currently the president for that. And that organizations like that are needed. There's, we have a booth here, and it was amazing the number of people, men and women, who stopped by to say, I'm looking for training for the females who work in my unit, or looking for different opportunities for them to be exposed and network. And networking and mentoring is really critical, and it's available. We just need to make sure that we get the people there to the experiences that can make them be better. And everybody wants the best person for the job. I think the best outcomes are going to be provided by the best people.
Outstanding. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to get the audience's participation going this morning. We're going to call on 2 people to get us started, and then just ask anybody else to jump in. Chief of Corrections for Orange County, Louis Quinones, and also the Director of the Miami-Dade Corrections Center as well, Daniel Jr. Yep, you. I'd like for you both just to talk about the work that you've been doing in this regard. You both and your agencies are leaders in this field, maybe even you as well, Colonel Palmer. Talk about the work that you've been doing on this issue, as this has been an important initiative for both of you.
Well, good morning. Thank you for inviting us to this seminar. One of the things that I would like to talk about is what we're doing in our county, specifically in our jail. One of the things is we have a new mayor, and the new mayor has made it very clear that he wants our agency to replicate our community. So that way we have a clear understanding of the individuals in our community and those that are incarcerated, as well as who is working. One of the things that we've done is a discussion with President Diggins in regards to gender equity. I informed him early on that we were very progressive. We're looking at the needs of female staff and incarcerated women, and that we put together a team. And right off the bat, one of the funny things about my agency is that I have a male major who is over a female facility, and they had an issue where the officer wanted to, what he called, or what they called, I should say, breast. They wanted to pump the breast for the milk. And I said, oh, you must be talking about a lactation room. So with that, we got together, and you can see just how, as progressive we are in what we're doing, we still have a ways to go. I've identified a captain that will oversee this team, and they've been very active in what they're doing. One of the things that I do, I would like to ask a question. Being that we're moving forward with this gender equity, one of the things that I faced immediately on was when I identified the specific captain to take on this initiative, I was then questioned, well, why did you pick her? Why did you pick me? And there is an issue that with women breaking the glass ceiling, when you have women that are both at a high level, how do you get ahead and help assist both of them to grow and not feel that they have to fight one another to get to where they are? That I think is I would like to hear from you women that have broken the glass ceilings. I'm sure that you've had that interaction. I think that will be beneficial.
So there's not a conference that we do that doesn't, the issue of cat fighting doesn't come up, right? I mean, I'm just going to call it what you call it. I think the truth of the matter is when there's scarce resources, people fight, right? Think about inmates. Inmates fight when they don't think there's enough cheeseburgers, there's not enough beds, there's not enough whatever. And so the question is there ample opportunity for everybody at the table? We would expect women to support each other in the endeavors, right? And to celebrate each other when somebody else succeeds. But it's our experience that that doesn't always occur. But I'm going to let you know a little secret. It doesn't happen with men either. somehow we identify it as a problem with women, and we don't identify it as a problem with men. When two men fight, I mean, I can tell you how many stories I can tell you about men fist fighting each other at work, right? Or in the parking lot, on Mission Lobby. Do men fight? And we don't ever say that's men cat fighting, but two women fight, and we already put a gender comment around it. So my advice would be, you know, don't let the women believe or feel or perceive that they were selected based on their gender. They were selected based on the skill set that they bring to that experience or the development that they need, and that you don't say, well, you know, women are competing against each other for these jobs. Every captain should have asked the question, why did you select Susie, right? Versus the two Susies saying, why was Susie 1 picked and not Susie 2? I think you have to be very mindful around the messaging about women competing with one another, as well as mindful about the messaging when women struggle with each other, that we don't put that in a stereotypical box of catfighting. And you'll ask yourself, next time you see two men fighting, you'll remember what I'm telling you here right now, because you would not say that about two men.
Thank you. Director Junior.
One of the things that we've done in Miami-Dade County, we've gone to great lengths to ensure that although women represent only 10% of our population in the jail, we want to make sure the same programming that's offered to the males are offered to the females within our custody, if not even more. We offer programs commensurate with the male programming, but also we do every year a Mother's Day event at our direct supervision facility where we recognize that some of the women that are incarcerated with children, we allow families to bring in the children. They sit, they have religious services, they do gift exchanges and so forth. And it's proven to be very positive with connecting them back to the family, because what happens is the biggest takeaway from the female when they're incarcerated is being away from their children. So we recognize the importance of that. The other part of it is that I think we do very well in Miami-Dade. We've taken a more holistic approach to improving the quality of life within Miami-Dade. We put in our correctional officers inside the high schools. I know there's a lot of programs targeting young black men, which I'm a part of, the 5,000 role models, Big Brother, Big Sister. But we recognize sometimes we miss our young females who, if without proper guidance, they can also end up in our system. So we put together a team of correctional officers, female correctional officers from our agency. And we went into the local high schools where they were having challenges with some of the young students within the Liberty City area. If you're familiar with Miami, you know how that area has been played over the years. And we go in and we call it Footsteps to the Future. And they every week, 2 days a week, our correctional officers, they go after school, and it's completely voluntary. But most of the students there have committed to it. They stay with the program, and the officers volunteer their time, volunteer their money to spend time with these young ladies, to mentor them, take them out on outings, just to show them a different quality of life that they may not have been exposed to. So I would encourage everybody to not only look within your walls, but look within your community to see what your correction officers can also do to prevent them from even coming into our system.
In Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, one of the things that when I was appointed in 2013, when I looked at the organization, I seen an organization that was male dominated. As I planned and began the structure of changing that out, was 2013, I looked at the women, the female staff within the agency. And I had a talk with a lot of them that talk about they never had an opportunity to be promoted or to rise up or to do anything different. So as I collected all this information and as I watched them in their jobs and their roles of what they've done, we fast forward to 2019, where now, at this point in time, my command staff is female dominated. We had folks, my two lieutenant colonels are now females, who are now working and who have done a phenomenal job that's been with the agency for well over 25 years, but never had the opportunity. And one of the things that I looked at, not only at that, but I also looked at the rest of the structure from captains down. I have female captains that are running male facilities. They're executive officers that are running male facilities. I have female teams that are running facilities themselves. So those are something that I looked at. Continue looking down through lieutenants and sergeants. But my issue isn't now with women, because we've made those changes. I now have to try to push the men into those positions of promotion as well. And when you talk about competition, one of the things I told my staff about, what we do is not about competition. It's about getting a job done. It's about working together and being successful. With the programs that we do in our program facilities, we have males working in female program facilities as well as females working in males. So we've made those initiatives to be able to create that pathway. But also besides, on the detention side, I have the community program side, which is the reentry and probation and things like that, and I looked at that as well too. And to ensure that we had female representation that were being in charge of as managers or supervisors of units. And we made sure that we got those things done. So at this point in time, can never be satisfied with what you're doing. I am pushing my staff to do more, to encourage them to do more. I'm hearing about the program for women executives. I want to make sure that my female command staff get involved. I think Captain Judon is in here somewhere. I want to make sure
To your left, right there.
she is right there. So she's one of my captains that runs for the facilities. I am going to push them to get involved in more programs and to coordinate with the organizations. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. But we went from a male-dominant facility and department to now where we're pretty balanced.
Before you sit down, let me ask you a really quick question. Was that because you removed the barriers, or was it because you were intentional about moving women up?
It was intentional. I guess through my career, I had a background in human resources as well too, and that kind of helped when I planned when I'm coming into the agency was something that I've always looked at. And one of the things that I asked my female command staff was to look at the agency, to expand, to look for these opportunities. And so what I did was I kind of pushed them into a lot of these opportunities. And I like to say, sometimes you may not get them to ask, but you may see something in them, and I've kind of pushed them in that way. And I try to get them to think outside of the realm of, I'm going to wait to be asked. So I figure I'm going to go ahead and push them. I'm going to put them in these positions, and we're just going to work through this, and we're going to do the things that we need to do. But also I seen the ability in them at what they were doing in their positions, as they came up through the ranks. So it was by design that I wanted to push them to be able to do that.
Thank you, sir. Let's get other questions. We got Don. Can you get the microphone over to Don? Topeka.
Good morning, everyone. Is it on? Okay. First of all, I wanted to say thank you, President Diggins, for making this opportunity available. As you know, and to you, Director Travis. One of the things, I'm very supportive of this initiative, not just from the perspective of an agency, but also from the perspective of a family member.
Can you all hear in the back? Is that microphone on?
I don't know. Is it on? Okay.
Done.
But from the perspective of a family member with a justice-involved loved one, as well as incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring to the table in support of this initiative is two women that have been leading the charge from an advocacy perspective. Ms. Deanna Hoskins, who I would like both of them, I actually flew them in specifically for this. I want to give them an opportunity to share what they bring to the table, what they know as a best practice and what is known as an evidence-based practice, to have someone who is justice involved be at the table when you're discussing issues with female programming, what's available for your community partners and resources. And then we also have Ms. Topeka Sams here. So I wanted to start with Ms. Deanna, and just for you to say a few things, and then also for Topeka to share with you all, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Actually, Ms. Shirley actually picked up on one of the things that when we think about women in custody and whatever the chaos is or the disruption going on with staff and the shortage plays out harder in the population of women as well. But one of the things that when we talk about women in our care, actually identifying that women normally come into jail under arrest in a crisis situation. And we put them in a cell as a response to the crisis, still dealing with the crisis and understanding that the trauma that women have when we come in is sometimes the physical structure of the facility, whoever the custody staff is that interacts, sometimes constantly re-traumatizes women in our care. So even when we start looking at this, we really have to pay attention to the trauma that we're actually, as a staff, thinking we're doing good, is actually causing more harm.
That's deep.
Good morning, and thank you for bringing me here. So my name is Topeka Sam. I'm the Executive Director and Founder of the Ladies of Hope Ministries. My organization focuses on women who are coming home from prison through access to education, spiritual empowerment, entrepreneurship, advocacy, and housing. I'm also the Director for Dignity for Incarcerated Women through Cut 50, where we focus on legislation that makes sure that women aren't shackled during child labor, that they get their proper hygiene products, and I do many, many other things. But I also wanted to add to what Ms. Shirley also said about the population. And the word that I was thinking of was care. And that's what the word that you used, that women are in the care of you, right? I was incarcerated for 3 years in federal prison. And this idea of the population, we vary. I have two parents. You know, both my parents have been married over 56 years. I had visits every single week. I do not have children. I came in with education as an entrepreneur and also as a division chairperson for Amtrak. So the things that were offered to me while in prison, they weren't. I had to create them. And this idea that programming, like knitting and crocheting, is going to help a woman transition into society and get a job that is equitable and also a marketable skill. And the men that are in prison, they get trucking and they get all these other programs, and so it is not equal. And so what I would like to see, and thank you again, Dawn, for bringing us here, is when you're thinking about these programs that you're also including the voices of women who lived in prisons, because we know the things that we need. We've created, I have a whole program, national program, a program that's national that focuses on leadership. We built a program to go into prisons, and we were approved by the Federal Bureau of Prisons to go into one prison, but we had difficulty getting into county jails and other jails around the country because we were convicted or we lived in a prison. And the fact that that is our expertise is something that we need help with. And so if you're looking for gender responsive care programming, I would encourage that you look at those women who've actually spent time in prisons and jails.
Thank you, Topeka. Thank you for being here and sharing that with us as well. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. Is there anyone in the back of the room that hasn't had an opportunity? We have one right here up front. Connie, and anybody else in the back want to take the last question?
Good morning, my name is Hazel Parrish. I'm a licensed clinical alcohol drug counselor. I work at Louisville Metro, and I'm currently a substance abuse coordinator for the Enough is Enough program. I'm a civilian, and I work in the jail. I have very little experience with working in the jail. I've been there for 3 years in the county jail. So I've learned everything from the inmates. I didn't learn anything from professionals in there. But as a civilian working in the jail, there's a disconnect from the officers and the service providers. It's like I'm an orphan in the jail that provide a very vital service for our inmates in a substance abuse program that very few officers even want to know what we do, don't respect what we do, don't respect the impact that we're having on the jail community. And it's just the female officers are not, they don't speak to me. So I'm like, what is the disconnect? You talk about equality, but there's disconnect and inequality among the officers when it comes to people who are providing services. I don't get that, because I have a sister that I work with, and every day I say good morning, good afternoon, and I don't get it back. And I'm like, well, what is this about? I don't have any idea about rank. I'm learning about all of the ranks and things like that, but the culture itself, I don't really want to know, honestly. But I just don't get the disconnect among the sisterhood in the jail, especially when I'm providing a service for inmates. I'm, at the top of my food chain in my field. So when I work in a community where nobody really acknowledges your profession, what you bring to the table, if you're not an officer or in this whole hierarchy of the jail. And I was listening and I said, I'm a civilian, I have to say something because I'm here, but I don't hear anyone speaking to my need, feeling not appreciated. And then taking the role of the program director that just left, who retired, he being a male, me being a female, that whole inequality to me is playing out. And I'm like, okay, so where do I go to get support? When you have a male-dominant, metro, it's just not there. So I don't have a union. I don't have anyone that I can go to. I'm in a silo. Me and my coworker, we work together, we take care of each other. But I hear all this other stuff from the officers, but what happens to the providers? I mean, if we don't do what we do, you're not going to have a whole lot of success in what you do. Because we make a difference in our community with our inmates. We're in there every single day. We're dealing with their family issues. We're making contact with probation and parole. We're dealing with caseworkers. We're dealing with, drug court. We're dealing with all of these providers. But I don't see where we're getting the same kind of respect and support that we're giving to our inmates because they look to us. We're like their sister or their big mama or their auntie. I mean, they look to us because we're the ones that their advocacy. We're their advocates, and we work like boots on. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's like, I'm here, but I'm not hearing things that address my needs as a provider. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Judy.
So, first of all, I'm sorry that's your experience. And I trust it is your experience. I trust, when I was running the jails there in Los Angeles County, I'd meet with the young deputy sheriffs. And you know what young deputy sheriffs look like, right? They're high and tight, they're fit, they're serious. And I would say to the young deputy sheriffs, who keeps the jails safe? And in unison, because young deputy sheriffs all say everything in unison, we do, ma'am. I said, well, are you sure? Perplexes them, right? Like, what does she mean? She's tricking us. And I said, are you sure you're the ones that keep the jail safe? And they say, you do, ma'am. I said, you're in a lot of trouble if you need me in my old age to keep you safe. It's been a long time since I wrestled somebody. And I'd say to them, how's your young deputy sheriff day going to go today if nobody feeds the inmates? How's your young deputy sheriff day going to go today if nobody's handing out medication? How's it going to go if there's no programming? Everybody in these environments, in these cities, in these communities matter. And public safety demands that quality programs are provided. And so I think you talking to your leadership team about the struggling that you're having, beginning to cross-educate about what substance abuse program is, making sure you as leaders are ensuring that your staff know that everybody matters and it's a space in which you're cross-training people. But let's be honest about what young female, or not even young female, what female deputy sheriffs sometimes encounter, or correctional officers. They don't want to be perceived as weak. And so they overreact to not want to be perceived as weak by being harder. And it's generally not in their core DNA. When I was a young correctional officer, I came from mental health, right? I did treatment. And I became a correctional officer in the most overcrowded, violent system in America. And all of a sudden, I was walking around kicking dirt and cussing like a sailor, right? I'm surprised I didn't chew right at the time. Right? Just being straight up with you, I was trying to figure out how to fit in this world that was unnatural for me, right? So maybe some understanding about why people pivot from where they started to where they think that they have to be to fit in. And create a space where it's okay to be humane and caring and sharing, that it is public safety to provide programs. So I'm speaking to the leaders out there that have the opportunity to create these spaces, right? And to you personally, maybe understand what's going on with them, that maybe didn't understand, that they may think they have to behave that way because kindness is seen as a form of weakness, right? When kindness is actually profound strength. And maybe try to explain the research around what drug treatment does for recidivism with the folks that you're working with. And find the one or two champions, because there'll be champions there for you.
Ms. Hazel, I too want to apologize for your experience. I'll tell you, one of the things that we hope all agencies do is open the door when they begin to have the conversation, to have all staff be a part of it. Not just the uniforms, but everybody. If you talk to the folks from Denver, they can tell you that's exactly what we did. So we hope that that can be your experience as well. Folks, it's time to close this out. Thank you all for being here today. We want to continue to challenge you to think about gender equity for those jail administrators, those sheriffs, those director of corrections. We hope that you'll jump on board and create a committee in your agency. Folks, have a great morning. Panelists, thank you. Would you please give our panelists a round of applause for this morning's discussion. The exhibit hall is getting ready to open. In fact, I think it's open now. We hope that you will go there, support our exhibitor partners, and don't forget about the awards banquet that is happening tonight. Everybody have a great conference, rest of the conference. Thank you.